All right, welcome everybody to another virtual Monday lunch. We've got a very special guest with us today, Coach R.C. Slocum. But before we hear from him, we're going to get a quick update from our president, Bill Hill, class of '84.
Well, howdy, folks. Bill here, and your president. I can't wait until we get back into Aggie Park. Logan and I have been talking about that along with the executive board and the board of directors, and I'm optimistic that if these numbers keep going well in Bear County and San Antonio, maybe within the next month, we'll open it up for those that want to participate, and maybe we can live stream that. Before I give an update to Aggie and Aggie Park and the club, I did just want to, can you see what this is right here? That is a golf, that's a golf tee. That's a golf tee. And I was actually playing golf yesterday, and I knew I had R.C. Slocum here, the coach, for our Monday lunch. And I was digging through my golf bag, and I found this golf tee, and it's from the Traditions Golf course. And I got this in 2009 when I played golf with Coach Slocum and Brigadier General Pete Atkinson, who was the Deputy Corps Commander at 3 Corps, and then the Aggie referee that was the NFL referee played with us, and I can't remember his name, Coach. Do you remember who that was?
Red Cashin.
Yeah, Red Caston. And we played on the Traditions golf course, and I had about 15 of these, and I've kept them. This is my last one. Anyway, Coach, it's great to see you again, and it was really a thrill to play golf with you and Red there. What a great day that was.
Well, thank you. We can get you some more of those tees if you'd like.
I think I know where to get them. But anyway, it's good to have you here. Let me just kind of go over a quick update here. Hey, first and foremost, Capital Campaign. That's our campaign where we raise funds for the renovation and expansion of Aggie Park. And we're getting close. We had a $1.6 million goal to raise. We're at almost $1.1 million. Actually, $1,088,550. That's about $4,000 more than last week when we gave you the last update. So even though we're not actively fundraising, we're pulling in some money steady as can be. And hopefully we can get that across the finish line here pretty soon. $255,000 matching funds to go. That's 25 Aggies donating $10,000, and we can do it. Okay, speaking of Aggie Park is open for business for limited events and those that qualify, and we have to open only at 50% capacity. So safe social distancing in effect. We follow all the CDC guidelines. So if you've got a wedding reception or some sort of gathering you want, if it qualifies, Aggie Park is your place. Hey, we got word that we will host a virtual coaches night this year. We don't have the exact information. We're still pulling that together. As soon as we can, we'll have the program and we'll let you know what that is. As you know, 2020 is going to go down in history. We canceled a lot of events, including San Antonio's Fiesta. Nevertheless, I don't have a picture of it, but we ordered some Fiesta medals, and they're going to be collector's item, the 2020 Fiesta medals. They're on sale at Aggie Park. You can go to aggiepark.com, and you can pull that in. And right now, we are also offering free shipping. It's not free, but for a small fee, we can get your medals shipped to you. The next big event is next Saturday, August 22nd. We've got the Aggie Park Barbecue Fundraiser. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cooking barbecue at Aggie Park. We've got homemade potato salad compliments of the Aggie Women's Club. We've got beans and all the fixings, $15 per plate, and this is a fundraiser. And in addition to just being able to pick up a plate for you and your family, and I recommend that you do, we're now offering a plate as a fundraiser to first responders, police and firemen in the local municipal areas. So I got a list here. We've got several cities already participating: Castle Hills, Chavano Park, Balcony Heights, and University Hospital. So if you'd like to sponsor a first responder with a plate, a barbecue plate, $15, all you got to do is go to aggiepark.com, and then you can order that and let us know. If you can't do that, pick up the phone, call Aggie Park, and we'll get that there. Speaking of golf, the next big fundraiser after the barbecue is our golf tournament, and that is going to be September 10th at Canyon Springs Golf Course. We've got Ruben Luna and Anne Marie is donating the lunch boxes for the event. So when you get there, you'll have lunch, and then you go out there and tee off, and we'll have barbecue afterwards. And that'll be all social distance. Everything will all be tight. Looks like we got Rebecca's Creek, and I don't have a bottle of that, but they're a big sponsor for us in doing that. And anyway, I hope you'll find an opportunity to come out and play with our golf tournament. It's a great time, and it's a great fundraiser for Aggie Park and everything we're doing. Hey, speaking of Aggie Park doesn't happen by itself. And this year, I know it's been a tough year, but we're accepting applications now for the San Antonio A&M Club and Foundation Board of Directors. If you'd like to serve, it's a great way to serve the community and Aggies all over the San Antonio area. You can pick up that application at aggiepark.com. Okay, Logan, that pretty much is it for the Aggie Park update. I'll turn it over to you and Coach, and I'm looking forward to a great Monday lunch. And Coach, great seeing you again. And I'll pick up another one of these golf tees sometime, maybe playing with you at Tradition sometime.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Bill. All right. Today, on behalf of the San Antonio A&M Club, honored to have as our guest this week the winningest coach in Texas A&M history. In his 14 seasons, he amassed 123 wins, 4 conference championships. He only lost 4 games in the 90s, 4 home games in the 90s. He was a 3-time Southwest Conference Coach of the Year, elected to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2012. The father of the Wrecking Crew defense, the legendary coach, R.C. Slocum. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you guys here and the people in San Antonio at the club. I've been to that club many times over the years, and going back to 1972, spring of 72, I went over there to an event with Emory Ballard. I've been to some of the past presidents' meetings that they've had there. Interesting night. And I've just been there a lot of times over the years, and always was so impressed with San Antonio. Such a great A&M town, and without a doubt, that park over the years has added to the experience of Aggies, young Aggies. I've been there when people had their kids and grandkids with them, and it's a special deal. I've been there barbecues and luncheons and evening events, and was always very proud of the support that Aggies in San Antonio gave to Texas A&M. And I think that club, the A&M club, there's a special deal. I used to tell recruits about it. You go into San Antonio and say, man, our people here, they care so much about it. We have our own little Aggie Park here where we get together. So, and a lot of them knew about it and heard about it.
Well, thank you. We're definitely proud of the park that we have, and it's a fun place to hang out and get together as Aggies. In San Antonio, we're dealing with with this pandemic as everybody is. So I just wanted to ask first how you and Nell and the family's doing through all this.
Well, we've really done well. I have tried to follow the guidelines and wear the mask when it's called for. Interesting thing, this past week, I was supposed to have gone to Colorado Springs. I'm on the college football playoff committee, and we were to have a meeting there, but 4 of our members are sitting athletics directors. The AD from Oklahoma, the AD from Florida, the AD from Georgia Tech, the AD from Iowa. And with all that's going on right now in college football, they just couldn't get away. So we decided to do what we're doing right now. So we had 2 days of Zoom meetings this past week. But one of the requirements to go to Colorado Springs for our meeting, we had to have a COVID test taken as late as possible before we went up, which was supposed to be last Wednesday. So last Monday, I went and took the test, and I was pleased that I passed the test. I wasn't surprised because I've tried to like I say, do the things that they ask you to do, and just the way I feel and whatever. I didn't think I had it, but it was fun. It was no fun taking it. Now I took the nasal swab test, and it's, it's just not something you want to do. I mean, if you have to do it, do it. It's not terribly painful, but it's just unsettling a little bit to have someone stick something up in your nose and start twisting it around, in both nostrils. But anyway, I got that behind me, and hopefully won't have to do it again. But we're adjusting. We've got students now here this weekend, this past weekend in College Station. You can tell there are thousands of kids here now. The traffic is like it's been in the past, so there are a whole bunch of kids here. I don't know what percentage of them right now will be actually going to classes as compared to the ones who are doing the virtual classroom. But we got a whole bunch of them here in town. I know that.
Are the kids having to get tested to go back to school, or what's
I
going
don't
on?
know. That's a good question. I would think so. I would think that they have to have some type of testing protocol, that they have to be tested, have a negative test, and I would guess that's maybe an ongoing thing, that you may test positive, negative on 1 week, and after a week of college activity. And I think that's the biggest concern. I saw someone earlier today, and they were predicting that we'd see in about 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see a spike in Bryan College Station positive test, because you just get, kids are kids. You get 50, 60,000 kids in a rather small area. They're going to be doing things together with each other, and they're not going to go isolate in some apartment room somewhere. They'll be getting together, and that will be interesting. I hope it all works out, but it is a challenge when you get that many young people doing what young people do.
Yes, sir. That brings up the probably the number one question that everybody's got, not only Aggies but everybody in the country. What is there going to be a season? Is there going to be some kind of season?
I don't think anybody knows that. I don't think there's anybody in America that knows that. I've stayed pretty close to it. I've talked to a lot of people. My son coaches at Arizona State, Sean. I've got a lot of coaching friends. Our coaches here, athletics directors, like I mentioned earlier, I'm on the college football playoff committee. We've had several meetings, and it's people from all over college football in America, all the different. Our chair of our committee this year is the athletic director at the University of Iowa, and of course they've decided not to play the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And I'd say this, I've told people that people's emotions get caught up in this because everybody wants to play. And I tell them the Big Ten Conference and the Big 12, along with some other conferences, have decided not to play. Now, those people really want to play and they really need to play. But after considering all the evidence, everything that they had to consider, they felt like they couldn't do it. It was not the best interest of their athletes to do it. Now, I know we want to desperately at A&M and in the SEC, and I'm sure the Big 12, I've talked to some people there, and everybody right now, I really appreciate what our commissioner is doing. He has not said we're going to play. He said we're going to keep moving forward, keep analyzing, they want to get all the data that the Big 12 had, the Pac-12 and the Big 10, and continue to evaluate that and see if we can do it. We want to do it if it'll work. There's a new issue that's come about here in the last week or two. This cardiomyopathy that has issues about that have been raised by the medical people. There's concern about the effects that the virus would have in causing some of that. And there's also a major concern that if there are enough tests available, if you had your team, if guys started getting cardiomyopathy on your team, do you have enough testing capability in a team and in a league to deal with your athletes in football and the other fall sports? So like I say, I don't think anybody really knows. I know what we want to do, and our position with the college football playoff committee is that we will evaluate however many teams are available. Then we will evaluate them and sift through whatever's there to determine who's in the playoffs. But we don't know, and I don't think the leagues know. So it's kind of a day-by-day thing right now. I know our players are here, and other universities I've spoken with have players actually going through some drills. I think it was yesterday, I saw where University of Oklahoma announced that they had maybe 8 guys that tested positive or something. And so we'll just have to take it, I think, one day at a time. I know we'd like to. We want to. We've got a lot of, but I think one of the things, you can never put your desire to play or excitement about playing, you can't put that on the safety of your young people that's in your program, and we won't do that. The SEC won't do it. A&M won't do it.
Yeah, the safety of the players, I would imagine, has to be number one when you guys meet. Are the other conferences, well, Big Ten and Pac-12, are they saying anything about about the SEC and Big 12 and I guess the ACC, not making that announcement yet to postpone the season, or is
I
everyone?
haven't seen any comments from them other than I know they've said publicly and privately. One of those commissioners I had firsthand this past week. I talked to someone that's on our playoff committee that talked firsthand with one of the commissioners, and he said they just, after looking at all the medical information, they just couldn't do it. They felt like they had to cancel the season. So I don't know what they saw. I know that our in the SEC, Greg Stanky is really a great guy, and I have tremendous respect for him and his intellect. He'll do what's right, and I know he'll do everything he can to get the very best information as they can get, and will make a measured decision based on all that information.
Well, that's good to know. You got to interact with him a little bit as when you were interim athletic director. Is that correct?
I did, and I've known him over the years, and we got to spend. He came in here. We hosted the SEC women's softball tournament last spring, and Greg came in here to support the league and to be here. So I got a chance to go out to dinner with him and met with him when he was here, and then I went to the SEC spring meetings in Destin, Florida, representing A&M. So he's really well respected, and I can see why. I think he's a great guy, and really has the student athlete's best interest at heart, and he's going to do what's best for the SEC.
You said you took him to dinner or went to dinner with him. When someone like that comes into town, do you take them to the Slocum Nutrition Center, or do y'all get out?
No, I mean, he may have stopped by there while he was here, but I took him out to town to a nice restaurant here in town and had a nice quiet dinner. And my wife went along with us, and his wife unfortunately didn't get to make the trip. But we had a nice evening just talking about a wide variety of topics. And he's a special guy, I think. We're very fortunate to have him.
Well, Coach, you grew up in Orange, Texas. You went to McNeese State and played football and got a graduate degree there after your undergrad. How did you make it to A&M after going to school in Louisiana, growing up in East Texas? What was the draw?
Well, I don't know. I think it was. I coached 2 years. I'd done my student coaching at Lake Charles High School, and was continuing to go on into graduate school. Back then, it's different than it is now. You hear about graduate transfers now. So in those days, if you graduated, you were ineligible. You couldn't play. So I went in as a freshman. I redshirted as a freshman. And then every semester, I always had to work in the summer. I worked in the shipyard and the refineries and things to make some money in the summer. But I did take a full load all the way through. So coming up to my senior year, I was on schedule to graduate. But if I graduated, I couldn't play. So I took all but one course, and I went on into graduate school, and I got to take some graduate courses. So I'd already started my master's, and the coach at Lake Charles High called me on a Friday and said, the assistant head coach of Lake Charles High had been moved up to assistant principal. He said, I've got an opening for a coach, and you're the guy I'd like to hire, but you got to tell me something. I can't wait long for an answer. I said, well, how long? He said, well, I need to know. We've already started practice, so I'd like to know by Monday. I'd like you here. So I said, okay. I thought it over a little bit, and I could continue to go a couple nights a week and continue working on my master's. So I went to Lake Charles High 2 years. I got a chance to go. I wanted to get into college coaching, and I threw a long story's too long to talk about how but anyway, I got a chance to go to Kansas State. I'd never been to Kansas, but I loaded everything I owned in a U-Haul, took off, went to Manhattan, Kansas. Didn't really know what they were going to pay me. I knew it wasn't going to be much. And I never forget, my dad said, son, you mean you're going off up there? How much are they going to pay you? And I said, well, I don't really know. He said, you don't know? You mean you're taking a job? You don't even know what they're about. I said, well, it's not going to be much, but it's a great opportunity. And so I went up there, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. So I was there one semester, got hired full time, stayed there. So fast forward, after 2 years at Kansas State, I came home for Christmas and 1971. And before that, like back in November or sometime, I'd heard Emory's name. Coaches in college keep up with where everybody's moving around, but I'd heard Emory's name, and Emory was mentioned. He's having great success at University of Texas as the offensive coordinator, inventor of the wishbone. And I heard that he's going to get a head coaching job. So I wrote him a letter. I didn't know him, but I wrote him a letter and introduced myself and said I was from Texas, and if he were to get the Baylor job, I'd love to come back. And so I come home for Christmas, and the University of Houston was practicing for the Bluebonnet Bowl, and they're playing Colorado. So I had one of my high school coaches was an assistant at University of Houston. So I went over there to watch them practice to try to learn some football. And while I was there at noon, he called me aside and he said, look, you can't tell anybody this, but as soon as this game's over, Melvin Robertson, who was the defensive coordinator at Houston at the time, said, Melvin and I are going to A&M. Emory Ballard has got the A&M job. I said, really? I thought he was getting the Baylor job. He has the Baylor job and the A&M job, and he thinks A&M is a better job, so he's going there. And I said, oh, God, that's great. I'd love to go with you guys. And he said, well, use us as a reference. And everything. So I started driving back to Orange, and on the way back, I said, if I try to call up there's no way I will ever get through to talk to Emory. And the next day was supposed to be his first day on the job. So I got up at 3-something in the morning. I went in, just got home, spent a few hours, cleaned up, changed clothes, got in the car, and I drove old Highway 105 from Orange to College Station. I was sitting on the front steps there at G. Raleigh White about 7:30 in the morning when Hazel Grubbs, who was Emory's assistant, came walking in with the keys to unlock the door. And she says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm here. I'd like to see Coach Ballard. She said, do you have an appointment? Does he know you're coming? I said, no. She said, does he know you? And I said, well, not really, but I've written him a letter, but I'd like to talk. She said, well, today's not a good day. It's his first day on the job, and he's got a bunch of interviews. He's got a bunch of press appointments. He's got coaches here. Just wouldn't be a good day. And I said, I know all of that, but I've driven a long way. And if I can just hang around, if I can just shake his hand and just meet him and get a name with a face, so I could tell she wasn't too happy with me, but she did let me come in and sit down, and a little while came back and offered me a cup of coffee. So I sat there all morning, and people going by back and forth, I'm just sitting there. And this was up on the second floor of G. Riley Way. And so a little while before lunch, someone came in, one of the girls came by and said, there's a place across the street, the MSC, where you can go get some lunch if you want to. I said, no, that's okay. I'll stay right here. So about 1:30, Emory's assistant came out. Emory had come in through the back door, and she came out and she said, Coach Ballard knows you're here. If you want to wait till 4 o'clock, he's got just a little small window, just a few minutes. He'll say hello. I said, that's perfect. So at 4 o'clock, I go in and see Emory and start telling him all the reasons why I think he should hire me. And so we kind of connected a little bit, I think, you know. So I left there feeling pretty good. He said, "I tell you what I'll do. I'll call you one way or the other before Christmas and let you know." He said, "I'm not sure what I'm gonna do to the staff." So December 1971, the day of Christmas Eve. That morning, I'd been coming down to Texas with Bubba Bean, to recruit Bubba Bean. I was in Kansas State, so I recruited Texas, and I had several guys. Joe Washington Jr. was another recruit I was working on, but I'd gotten to be pretty close to Bubba to come down and watch him play. So on Christmas Eve, I called him that morning. I said, "What are you doing, man? What's going on?" He said, "Well, I think me and my friend are going to Beaumont shopping this morning a little bit." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You know what y'all do is come on over to ours. My brother's having a barbecue. Come over here and see us in ours." So, and that was legal back then. You could take them out to dinner or do whatever you wanted to in those days. So anyways, we may do that. But sure enough, he comes to Orange, and I'm over at my brother's, and he's having a barbecue. And I told my mother I left her, she had my brother's number. But I said, "If I get a call here, it's important, forward it on to me." So in a little bit, my brother comes out and said, "Hey, some guy out here wants to talk to you on the phone." I go, "It's Emory." And so in that conversation, he told me he decided he wanted to offer me a job. I said, "Coach, man, I'm so excited. I'll take him." I said, "Do you want to talk to Bubba Bean?" He said, "Well, yeah, that'd be great." He said, "As soon as he said, we'll report on January the 2nd, get you signed up and everything. And that'll be one of the first stops when we'll go to Kirbyville and see." I said, "No, I'm saying you want to talk to him right now." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I got Bubba right outside right here." So anyway, I go out and put my hand. My brother had one of those long cords. I take the phone out and I covered the receiver for a minute. I say, "Bubba, all those things I told you about Kansas State were true. It's a great program and you'd be good, but that is a long, long way up there. And it'd be really hard for your mother to ever see you play." I said, "I just took a job at Texas A&M, and I think that's a better place for you to go." And so anyway, I put Bubba on the phone. Long story short, we got Bubba at A&M, and he started. That was the first year freshmen were eligible to play on the varsity. We still had a freshman team, but if they were good enough, they could play. And Bubba started first ball game for Texas A&M that year. So that's kind of how I got to A&M.
Man, that's
Long story. But, a story lesson for young Aggies, and I tell people, most of life's real good opportunities, they don't come hunting for you. You got to knock on doors and kick doors down and turn rocks over and do whatever to seek those opportunities out. And I thought if I'd have sat back and waited, that job would have probably never come to me. And I'm so thankful that it did and that I took the effort to seek it out, and will forever be indebted to Emory Ballard, who did a great job at Texas A&M. He went in at a time our facilities were terrible. They're just, really, it was a hard job at that time. And Emory went in and kind of got things turned around, went out, kind of opened the doors recruiting the black athletes. When I got there, we had one scholarship player and one walk-on player who'd been put on scholarship. And we went out that first year and we signed Pat Thomas, Carl Roaches, Bubba Bean, Alvin Bowers, Pat Thomas, Jackie Williams, some of the guys who came in, and there's a couple of All-Americans in that group that we brought in. It really kind of turned things around for our program.
Well, that's a really good point you made about going out and taking advantage and making things happen for yourself and not sitting back and waiting. You talked a lot about recruiting, and while you're a coach, you had some pretty good players that came out of San Antonio. Do you have any stories or any players that have stuck with you that came out of San Antonio?
Yeah, over the years, we had Michael Hendricks was a defensive back. We call him Hurricane Hendricks. I don't know where the nickname came from, but he was a really good player for us, good guy. My first year at A&M, I was actually receiver coach. And I had Richard Osborne, was a great all-state player at San Antonio Lee. And he came in and started as a true freshman at A&M. And I was coaching actually Richard and Carl Roach is another one of those top recruits. We alternated time between those two. And in the wishbone offense, most of the time we only had one wide receiver, one split in. And those two guys came in. Richard was a great player, played some in the NFL. Carl played in the NFL. And so he was one of the best players my whole time at A&M. Greg Sharp had a great career. Made some really big plays. I remember one play toward the end of the game. We played out in Anaheim. We played in a kickoff Pigskin Classic out there against Stanford. And Stanford was coached by Bill Walsh, who had just won 2 or 3 Super Bowls. And that season, they were a good team. They ended up being co-champs of the Pac-10 Conference that year. But we played them in Anaheim. And toward the end of the game, it was a close game, something like, I want to see 17-9 or something. It was a close game that we won. And Sharp made a huge play at the end of the game, long touchdown pass. And I told our guys, you guys have to play hard, man. We got a genius coaching the other team that's won 2 or 3 Super Bowls. You guys got to make some plays. And it was, it's one of those things that over the years, people talk about the offense or whatever. Well, that game, Bill Walsh was a great offensive coach with Montana and all those guys. And we played that game and won it out there against a real good team. And whatever the deal was, we outscored them. So it was a fun trip. And I'll never forget Sharp and I played. We had another young man named David Brothers back in those days, back in the wishbone days. It was really I'm trying to think where David, he played at the high school out there by the air base. What's the
Randolph Air Force Base, Lackland, Kelly.
Yeah, he played at the high school. Really had a real good program out there. Whatever slips my mind right. I didn't thought about it in a while, but he was really good. Kevin Monk was really good player for us. Played linebacker. We had a big guy named Ronald Fleming that came in and played defensive end, tall, skinny kid. Came in. He started as a true freshman for us. And then we had all those Dowson boys. We had 3 Dowson brothers that came in, and unfortunately, one of them is no longer with us. But he was a guy that really was a big part of our program when I was coaching. Played center and was a really good
Chris
player.
Dawson. Yes, sir.
Chris. Yeah.
He last time we did we changed out all the lights at Aggie Park. Dowson Electric came and did all the work for us. So
Right.
great.
Yeah. He was an emotional guy and really just one of the leaders on our team, and those were good teams he played on.
I don't think they lost very often, did they?
No, they didn't.
You mentioned Greg Sharp. He played in our golf tournament last year. Super nice guy. Came out and played, and we have our annual golf tournament. And I remember when I was a kid, you playing at a golf tournament, one of the Air Force bases, and I ran over there and didn't no golf etiquette. Just I think you might have been hitting a shot. I don't know, but I just ran up and said, "Coach, can I get your autograph?" You signed my scorecard, and I really appreciate that. And so
that was fun. One of those tournaments down there, really one of the exciting opportunities in my life. I was playing with 2 Aggie generals, Billy McCoy and Joe Ashey. And I think Joe was a 4-star and Billy was a 3-star. And both pretty good golfers, too. But we were playing, and some of the military planes were zipping over San Antonio. And both these guys were fighter pilots in Vietnam. And I said, man, that's got to be a thrilling deal. I admire you guys so much. They said, Coach, would you like to do that? I said, yeah, I guess. I've never done it before. I said, well, we can get you up in a plane. So, a lot of times people make small talk, probably generals don't do that, but, about, I don't know, 3 months later or something, I get a phone call from Colonel Hess, who was also an Aggie, who was the commanding officer at the base in Del Rio, Laughlin Air Force Base. And so he called me and he said, General Ash's last order before he went to Aviano to take a command over there, he says, get the coach up in the plane. So he said, if you'll come down here and talk to my pilot trainees, we'll get you up in the plane. So I went down. And we had an Aggie dinner. They actually invited the city of Del Rio, all the Aggies, to come out. We had a little Aggie night and had Mexican food. And a couple of those young pilots came up to me and they said, "Coach, you need to go easy on that Mexican food tonight." So I was going to go up in the plane the next morning, you know. So I get up and it was so thrilling. We took off side by side, and T-38 trainer, and I was in the back seat, of course. And we took off, went out and came out of there and took off and flew to San Antonio and did a touch and go at Kelly, and then went back out to some restricted area out there and did some rolls. And it was all, I had an Aggie pilot, and there was a pilot and co-pilot in the other plane. And and they gave me a nice book of pictures of, and we had a good time. That's one of the real thrilling deals. And I appreciate those guys doing that. And I've run across some of those Aggie pilots over the years that were down there at that time, some of the trainees. But it's a neat deal. I've always been proud of what our graduates have done here at A&M. And wherever I've found them, and I say probably, and I don't say this in a bragging way, but I probably met more Aggies than maybe anyone. I mean, over the years, I've been here now well over 40 years, coached 30 seasons. And during that time, I've spoken at Aggie events in Panama City, Panama, and San Diego, and Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and Chicago, Washington, D.C., all over Texas, Denver, Colorado, and all those events, you know, musters or coaches' nights or whatever they were. And I've always been so impressed. And then I took a tour, a USO tour to the Middle East about 3 years ago. They had a SEC coaches tour. And Phil Fulmer, who's now the AD at Tennessee, he and I went to 7 U.S. bases to the Middle East. And it was so much fun to see the young Aggies over there on those bases and the pride that they have. And one particular night in Bahrain, one of the commanders there of a F-18 squadron says, "Coach, you got to go out. You got to come out and see my plane." So he had all the passes and everything. So we go out back. This was at a dinner, and after the dinner, we went back out to the runway there and saw all the F-18s that he was commander of. So just again, so proud to see the kind of people that A&M turns out, and we're still doing that. And it's been a special thing over the years to know so many people and to see what they've done, how they've contributed after they've gotten out of A&M to making things better.
Well, you talked about, you coached for 30 years. And then after you retired from coaching, you still could have gone just about anywhere probably and coached. But you decided to stay at A&M. And what was kind of the decision process behind that? And by the way, we're very happy that you have stayed and been a great ambassador for the university. But
well, I spent 30 seasons at A&M, and the first college campus I ever set foot. I was the first in my family to go to college. But when I was a kid, there was an Aggie from my hometown named Homer Stark. And I met him through his kids who were in school with me. And he brought me up to A&M Texas game and Bonfire. And we did that several times. And, I just fell in love with A&M as a kid. And I'd never been on any other campus. So when Emory called me and hired me that day, before I called my family back, I called Homer Stark and told him, I said, "Man, you won't believe it. I just got hired to go to A&M." So I had a brief stint where I left, went to Southern Cal as a defensive coordinator, and then I'd been back at A&M. So I had to quickly think, after, when I was let go at A&M, by the next morning at 7:30, Mark White, the former governor of Texas, called me, and Mark was a Baylor graduate, and says, "We need to get you to Baylor, and I don't care what A&M was paying you, we'll pay you more if you'll come to Baylor." About an hour later, Drake McLean, who the stadium up there is named after now, called me, and he was on a business trip to New York, told me the same thing. He was on the board at Baylor. A little while later, the AD from Houston called me, and then one of their former great players I knew, called me, one of their quarterbacks, and basically told me the same thing about the University of Houston. Then North Turner, who I'd worked with at Southern Cal, had just got the Raider job, the Oakland Raider job, and wanted me to come. So I got all these job deals now, and so I said, I got to make some decisions here in a hurry. And I just said, I couldn't see myself going after all the years at A&M, leaving and going somewhere else and just putting on a different color cap and said, okay, here we go. I'm gonna go spin. And I tried to play it out of saying that over that 30 years at A&M, anything I'd done outside of football, if I'd gone to play golf, if I'd gone hunting or done fishing or anything like that, I did it pretty much with Aggies. And both my boys were Aggies. And I just said, I've been marooned too long. Not long after that, I needed a new truck. I got in a wreck and they totaled my truck, so I had to get a new truck. So someone says, you don't have. I went out. Ray Childers was in the car business then and had a dealership. Someone said, Coach, you don't have to get a maroon truck anymore. You're not coaching it. I said, well, I don't know. I've been driving that maroon for a long time. So I came home. I had another maroon truck, But anyway, it's all worked out. A&M, shortly after that, created a position, part-time position, where I represent A&M in a lot of functions and do those kind of things like we're doing today, and still involved. And now, since then, I've got 3 granddaughters who have graduated from A&M. I've got nieces and nephews, and all of a sudden, when I went to school, I was the first in my family to ever go to college, and we got a whole bunch of college graduates now, and most of them are Aggies. So that's all worked fine. And at this stage of my life, I'm at peace with it. I could have, without a doubt, there have been other opportunities after those, and some of them head coaching jobs here in the state of Texas, in other schools, and outside of Texas, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and the things work in strange ways. I probably would have never quit coaching if they hadn't have told me that I was quitting. And so I've been blessed with good health, and I can say I stay in touch with the game, but A&M means a whole lot to me. It means a lot to my family. And my relationship with the Aggies over the years, and it's been. I looked around as a young coach when I was coaching at A&M. Before I was let go, the Arizona Cardinals in 1993 offered me the head coaching job with the Phoenix Cardinals. LSU 2 different times approached me about the head coaching job at LSU, but A&M just meant a whole lot to me, and I didn't want to be anywhere else. I grew up in Texas, and I've been here long enough that I had deep ties to families. I see families in Dallas, San Antonio, and places that, I knew Mr. Zachary, the old Mr. Zachary, when I first came to A&M, HB Zachary, and in towns like Dallas, Bum Bright, and old guys in Houston, San Antonio guys, that at that time were pretty young. The guys like Mr. Upmore, was very involved at that time and had actually worked for Zachary, but I just so many of those families, that I've been tied to, and John Yannis down there, Stanton Bell, Charlie Wiseman, guys that, I'd known for 30 years, and people had been, friends to me and my family. And so I just made the decision. I will stay here, enjoy living in College Station, and I don't want to live anywhere else. I don't want to. I went out to California, and I was okay. I enjoyed being at Southern Cal. We led the league in defense when I was out there, but the lifestyle and everything, College Station is a lot more me than LA was.
Well, you talked about all the friends and relationships. How many phone calls a day do you get from former players, from your players and friends?
I'll say this: there's seldom a day that goes by that I don't get a text message or Facebook or phone call or something from for one of my former players. And that adds so much meaning. You know, over time, the wins and losses and that all tends to run together a little bit. I'm proud of it, but it runs together. But those guys, and seeing guys that you went in their home when they were 17 years old and met them and their families, and they came to A&M, and now they got families, and you watch them grow up and watch their kids grow up, and that relationship. I talked to our basketball coach, Buzz, a week ago, and I was telling him, I said, you'll remember this someday that I told you this, but I said, your relationships with those players, that is the lasting and meaningful thing of what you do. How you affect them, what impact you're having on them, that will be the thing that lasts through time. And it'll bring reward to you to see them and for them to say, Coach, you know, I've had a lot of them say, Coach, you know, when I was playing, I didn't totally get it. I didn't totally understand it. But now I've got kids of my own. I know why you were like you were, and I appreciate you for it. And I have so many of those guys that said, Coach, man, you had a big, big influence in my life. You know, and so that's what my coaches did for me. I was a poor little old kid in Orange, Texas, never been anywhere, never done anything, shined shoes, threw newspapers, just fighting and scratching, trying to find a way out. And my coaches took me under their arms. They polished on me. They were demanding, but never demeaning. I never had a coach mistreat me. My coaches were uplifting kind of people and firm, hard, demanding, but were encouraging guys, and it helped me to rise above my circumstance and go to college. And so that's why I was in coaching. I never went into coaching for the money. Money never played a consideration in any of the jobs I had or jobs I didn't take or whatever. It never was about money. It was about doing something that I really loved doing, and I'm thankful I got to do that at Texas A&M.
That's pretty awesome. Jimbo Fisher said that it's not about the money, but I know that $75 million, that's a little different contract than you guys got back then, but that's things have changed a little since then. But hopefully he's got us on the same track that you had us on when you were coaching. I've got to ask you a question about a football game. You've had so many huge games in your career, but one of the most iconic goal line stands that we see before every game is stopping Bo Jackson at the goal line in the Cotton Bowl. And you got, between the third and the fourth quarter, I think it was the start of the fourth quarter, they had the ball 1st and 6. So you obviously had time to talk to your defense. What did you tell them as they're going out there knowing Bo Jackson's getting the football?
Well, that's what I told them. I said, I knew, I felt in my mind that they would give him the ball again. You'd have to do that. You got the Heisman Trophy back here. You have to put it in his hands. So one of the good things, that area of the stadium, that end zone was full of Aggies. That place was rocking, man. It was the 12th man was into it. And we actually called a timeout after the third down stop. And I called them over and talked to them just a little bit. And I told them, I said, hey, they're going to give the ball to Bo Jackson. And I said, y'all get back. I didn't even call the defense for that. I said, y'all get back out on the field, enjoy the fans down there, and I'll give you a call. Let's make it work, So, we hit him about 2 or 3 yards deep in the backfield. I have a picture of that here at the house. And it's just guys all over him, and he's 2 or 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage, much less the goal line. So that's something I won't ever forget. I've met Bo. Bo's a nice man, and we've actually talked about that over the years.
That was definitely pretty cool, and I love seeing those highlights before each football game on the scoreboard. You mentioned that LSU offered you the head coaching job a couple of times. I would think they wouldn't even want you in the state after you had a pretty good record against those guys. I think they even gave up trying to play us for about 20 years because of your teams.
Yeah, they broke the contract. We beat them. I beat them 6 out of 7 tries, and I felt like we got a bad deal in Baton Rouge, the one we didn't win. They end up throwing Darren Lewis out of the game. One of their guys drives him all the way to the side of the stadium and ended up they kicked both kids out of the game. And theirs was a backup guy that went in there and was, so I don't know. But I was disappointed in losing that game. But it was, I remember the first LSU game as head coach. You know, at my first game, they were ranked number 7, I think it was, and they came in there to Kyle Field. So we were all fired up. We were running out on the field. You know, first game as a head coach. End up they kick off to us. Larry Horton runs the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. And so my first play as a head coach was about an 80, 90-yard touchdown run against LSU, number 17 in the nation. We went on and won the ball game that day. So that was kind of fun.
Those fans don't forget much over there in Baton Rouge. Have you been back to any of the games since we've been in the SEC to Baton Rouge?
I have. I think I've been to every one of them over there, and I go over there and I have sat with our athletics director, but I actually have some friends. There's one in particular that's a former LSU player that's got a big box on the 50-yard line, and he always invites me to sit in their box, and they're very, very cordial in the games, and really. Those are some of the fun things. I've got a picture in here of one of my. I'm gonna get this picture right, maybe you'll be able to see it.
Sure.
Here's a picture. Can you see that?
Yes, there you go.
Can you see it? So this is the night that we beat Alabama. They were number 1 in the nation, and we beat Alabama at Alabama, and that's me, John David Crow, and Paul Bryant Jr. and Paul Bryant's box at the stadium in Alabama. And we go over there in that game. Paul Bryant was a young man on campus at A&M when his dad coached here. And I think he was about the 8th grade when Coach Bryant went back to Alabama. But anyway, very graciously always invites me to sit with him when we play over there. So I'm sitting there next to John David, and Paul Jr. is next to him. And we got Coach Bryant's kids and grandkids in the box. And 50-yard line, Bryant-Denny Stadium. We take the opening drive, go down and score. I kind of nudged John David. I didn't say anything, but I kind of elbowed him a little bit. We kind of sat there. Next time we hold them, we drive down, score. I kind of nudged him a little bit. Then the third time that happens, at the end of the first quarter, I think it's 20-0. Paul Jr. leans over and he said, you know, I've seen a lot of games in this stadium, but I don't think I've ever seen one quite like this. Anyway, it went on to end up being a good ball game, but we won. Johnny had a great night that night. It was a fun event. I cherished that time with John David. Was a dear friend, and like I say, Paul Bryant. His dad was in the history of college football coaching, was someone that I really admired. Coached here at A&M and coached at Alabama, and so that's an evening I won't ever forget. That was a special time.
Well, while you were sitting in a suite on the 50, I was in the third deck baking in the sun. I picked my brother up in Houston and said, "Hey, you coming to the game with me?" And he said, "No, we're gonna get beat so bad, I don't want to go." And I was like, "No, this is a game you need to go to. I'm picking you up." So picked him up, drove up there, and the rest is history. It was fun.
No, it was fun. I went over with a group of guys, friends of mine from here, invited me to go over. So after the game, we went out in the parking lot outside, just off campus there. We had a one of those portable boombox deals that had the Aggie war hymn on it. We had a little celebration out there in the parking lot that night. That was a fun evening.
That is awesome. Hey, you've mentioned golf a lot of times, and when I reached out to you a couple weeks ago, talked to you about this, you said you were in Carmel playing Pebble Beach.
Right.
What is your handicap, if you don't mind me asking? You play quite a bit, it sounds like.
You know, when I went out there on vacation, my index was 12.9. And when I came back, it's right now it's 10 even.
Pretty
So
good.
my goal, I got to get it in the single digits. But anyway, I shot out there. I had 179 and a bunch of 82, 83, 84 in that range, 81. And but I was playing some really good courses. Playing Pebble and Spyglass.
Yep.
So anyway, it's fun. I love to play. I never got to play when I was coaching. I never grew up playing golf. And I started off when I got into college coaching. You'd have some of those alumni scrambles in the summer. So you'd end up going and doing 2 or 3 of those. And, you know, it's the only time you'd play golf. Then you put your clubs up. You wouldn't play again until next summer. And you'd go play a scramble, and you'd play a scramble. And so that was the extent of my golf. And then, you know, I found out just getting to play a little bit more helps, you know. And so it's something I really enjoy doing, and been blessed with good health that I can still do it. And I can hit it past some of those young guys too.
I bet. Well, a 10 handicap that can shoot in the 70s. We've got a golf tournament coming up September 10th on a Thursday, and I've got an extra spot on my team if you'd like.
Well, I appreciate that.
If you want to come down and
I played down there. Stanton Bell one time invited me to play as a member guest of Noli Ossi over at San Antonio Country Club. So I played there. I love playing out at Briggs Ranch. It's a beautiful place. And of course, the other courses there in town. I went out a few years ago. They had the 12 Man Foundation summer board meeting was down there. We played La Cantera, I think.
Yeah, there's some real good courses around San Antonio. We're playing out at Canyon Springs, which is another pretty good golf course, right out by it's out by TPC, by the JW Marriott. So you and Nell come down, stay at the JW, come play golf.
Yeah, I played with Yanis before. John Yanis is another guy that really involved with A&M back in the day. But, you know, I'd have to say probably the most loyal fan I've ever known from San Antonio, and he's been loyal for a long, long time. You'll know him well, Paul Upmore.
Paul Upmore is
He's as loyal as any fan we've ever had, you know. And I've known him a long, long time now, and I'm thankful for that. But he's been a guy that he's always got a smile on his face, and he's an Aggie fan now.
We went to the Peach Bowl in 2013, Johnny's last game, and we're sitting there in the stands, and I forget what the score was, but we were down by quite a few points, and everybody was just mad and cussing and yelling, and all the Aggie fans. And I went and got a whiskey drink, come back down, and it's right before halftime, and everyone's, you know, so mad, and Paul's just sitting there holding up.
That's him, man. Yeah.
He ain't giving up, and that was just one of the best comebacks, one of the best wins.
He's the most loyal fan we've had in my experience here.
Yeah, that's my Uncle Paul. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah. And he will not leave a game until the last second ticks off the clock. I don't care how cold it is, how much we're ahead, how much we're behind. He won't leave the game until the last second ticks off the clock. So, yeah, definitely a big Aggie. Well, I've got one last question, and this is one that most Aggies disagree with me on. I feel different than most, and I'd like to see what you think about it. Are we ever going to start the rivalry back again? You know, we sing the war hymn a couple times a game. You know, it's such a big part of the school's history, and we stopped playing when we moved to the SEC. But is there?
You know, I'm glad you asked that. One of the things I'm most proud of, I grew up in Orange, like I say, watching the A&M Texas game, and I coached in that game more than anybody in history. I coached in that game 30 times. That's more than anyone on either side of the rivalry. And what I really like to tell people is of those 30 times, I walked off the field on the winning team 30 out of those 30 times, 16 of the times I was on the winning side. So I tell Longhorns that, and they say, "Are you sure?" Because they live in some kind of revisionist kind of a history deal. You know, they want to go back to, I don't know, before my lifetime. Modern history, I can give it to you. 30 times, we won 16. Now, you can go back maybe some Aggies not be aware of that or might question it, but I started coaching that game in 1972. I missed one time, the 81 season, I was at Southern Cal, and that was a loss for A&M that year. But other than that, from 72 to 2002, with 1 year I didn't coach in the game. Those 30 times, we won 16 of those 30. So anyway, it was something special. I loved the game, loved going over there. One of the fun experiences, we played, I think it was 93. We played in Austin, and there was a night game, national TV. And so I went out to dinner after the game. And you can imagine, time I got through, it was about 11 or something, whatever that place, the Nighthawk or some kind of deal across the road over there. Some Aggies asked me to go. So I go in there, have dinner, and get back to the hotel. So next morning, I'd plan on taking my son on a one-day deer hunt. My brother had a lease out in Brady. So I said, I only have 1 day on Friday because I got to go playoff games for recruiting. So, but that night I come back to the hotel and the game is on, ESPN on the replay. So I sit there all night. I just turned it on. I watched the whole game. So 6 o'clock or so, I take a shower and we get loaded up, check out there. We start driving. And so we stopped at the barbecue place in
Lano?
no, in Llano. We stopped in Llano at the barbecue place.
Cooper's. That'd be Cooper's.
Yeah, Cooper's. So I walk in, and it's the funniest. I'll never forget this. So I walk in there, and it's Aggies and Longhorns going home after the Thanksgiving game, and they're all in the restaurant. So I walk in there, and about half or more of them just start hooping and hollering and yelling. The other side, they didn't boo me, but they weren't participating. You know, so I said that is such a classic A&M Texas moment to be in that restaurant. And I walked in, and immediately half the room, or whatever percentage it was, started whooping and going, and the other half just sat there because we had won the game. And that was really fun. As far as whether we should play it or not, you know, we've got schedules, they've got schedules, and I don't know, there's some deep feelings among a lot of people, you know, about, you know, things that were said when we left to go to the Big 12. Now, this whole thing about the conference realignment was started by them.
Yeah.
By them. And without a doubt, I was in all the meetings. I know, and I can remember Tom Osborne telling me at Nebraska, telling me that they just, you know, they'd come in there after winning some national championships, thought they were a pretty good program, and they were kind of a stepchild in the meetings behind Texas. And I can remember coming back to John David was the athletic director at the time, and I said, have you heard anything about the Southwest Conference breaking up? And he said, no, not really, you know, not anything, if any substance, anything. I said, well, you better check, man, because I was at a coaching meeting in Orlando. It was a head coach's deal. And I said, everybody out there's talking about Texas going to Pac-10. And I said, we better be finding out if it's true. We better decide where we're going and where we'd want to go. So about 2 days later, he said, I'll call around. About 2 days later, he came to me. He said, man, you were right. He said, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. You know, Texas is you know, really exploring, wanting to go. So that was the early deal. And so not long after that, shortly after that, we had a meeting with our chairman of the board of regents and our president, and John Davis, AD, and myself, and said, if this happens, if the Southwest Conference breaks up, number one, we don't want to be seen as being involved in breaking it up. But if we're being on top of things here, we need to see what our options are. If it breaks up, where can we go? And where do we want to go? Bigger question, where would we like to go? And so at that meeting, we decided that we kind of said, you know, we ought to explore. We'd be a better fit, way better fit in the SEC than we would going west. And so I knew Roy Kramer, the commissioner, and they commissioned me to call Roy and just explore. Totally exploratory, no official deal. And So I presented it that way. I said, it's just a hypothetical. If something were to happen to the Southwest Conference and, the conference break up, would there be any interest in Texas A&M? And he said, well, I can't speak for our presidents, but I'll do some checking around and I'll call you back. Well, about 2 or 3 days, he called back and said there would be very strong interest in A&M. And so what happened after that, not too long after that, this thing kept growing, I think. And so the governor, Ann Richards, at that time, called a meeting of the president of A&M in Texas and said, look, we know this thing we're here in this league is going to break up, and you need to know that there's going to be a lot of political fallout if y'all break this thing up. But we can handle that. But you need to know you're not going anywhere unless you take Baylor and Texas Tech with you. And so that's kind of how the Big 12 came about. You had the 8 old Big 8, and then the 4 Southwest Conference schools came together. So then we kind of, patched that thing up, had a league. And then, Nebraska, like I say, Osborne was in there. And in that league, there was a lot of ill feelings over time with how Texas managed things. And I'd say we had some of that too. The Longhorn Network, was an issue. Here we got one team in the league is going to have their own network. And their early plans with that network were to do things like televise high school football games and do all that, which would have been a tremendous recruiting advantage. And so we just more and more, there's some bad things that happened during that period of time. We just started saying, hey, you know what, and then one of the things that was said, after we kind of patched things up, then we kept hearing that they were still talking to the Pac-12. And so at some point, our president asked their president, said, we keep hearing that y'all still talking, the Pac-12, maybe entertaining some thoughts of leaving. And so his response was, well, yeah, that's true, but don't worry, whatever we do, we're going to take care of y'all. That statement didn't go over very well.
Yeah.
He said, we don't need anybody taking care of us. We take care of ourselves. And so that thing at that point, then we started saying, hey, and I think it's been a great fit for us. Having been the acting AD, and I've kept up with all the ins and outs of the league. We're with the premier league in college sports. And so whatever happens, and no one knows what down the road is going to happen, but we're in a league from a television revenue, the way it's run, the whole thing, we're in the best place that we could be. And so I feel very, very good about what we've done. And maybe sometime down the road in a playoff game or whatever, we'll end up playing Texas. But things change. And I love the game. I'm so proud of having played the game. I realized what it was. But it's not something that, and I tell people that for all Aggies, I think this is something that you should keep in mind. Anything that they're jumping up and down wanting to do, who do you think they think's advantage to? If they're jumping up and down, oh God, we got to get this thing going. About doing, that's probably not in our best interest, And,
I like hearing them cry about not playing us and wanting to play us more, but I also think they're doing it because they need us. Their program's not where it used to be, and so.
Anyway, I'm very pleased that we're in the SEC, and I think our future is bright.
Definitely, yeah. It's a lot more fun going to Auburn or to Nashville to play Vanderbilt than to Manhattan, Kansas to play Kansas State.
Yeah. And we still, going to play Tennessee this year will be a fun trip for our fans. It's a beautiful place, historical place. There's been a great history there at Tennessee. And I tell one, because this will be my last story. So I went over there a few years ago, and I'll show you this thing right here for your fans there. You can see this award here. This is the General Neyland Award given at the university. Their stadium's Neyland Stadium. They have one of those outside their stadium. So a few years ago, I was brought over there in spring, during spring training, to receive this Neyland Award. During the ceremonies, I met General Neyland's son, and I found out something I'd never heard before, and I would bet a whole lot of your members have not heard. General Neyland grew up in Texas, up in around Paris, Texas, Paris or Bonham. Came to Texas A&M as a freshman and played football at A&M, and then left and went to West Point and was a pitcher in baseball, played football, was a heavyweight boxing champ. And then went, he got out of West Point and went to Tennessee and was teaching ROTC, and they convinced him to come be the coach or whatever. So in 1938, the year before A&M won the national championship, Tennessee won the national championship with General Neyland as their coach. Then the war heated up, and he went to the war, had a great career, became a general, goes back to Tennessee, and in 1951 wins the national championship again. But over the years, I went and spoke at the this Tennessee while I was there a couple of years ago. I went and spoke at the quarterback club in Knoxville. And I said, over my lifetime, I've heard all the stuff about Tennessee and saying, we gave y'all Stephen F. Austin, we gave you General Sam Houston, we gave you William Travis, all it. We gave y'all General Neyland, so the trade's even. So anyway, but I never knew that. I came back, I checked. I came back to RSID, and they checked it out. And so General Neyland's son said, my father always followed A&M and kept up with A&M, had great respect for Texas A&M. But General Neyland, who is synonymous with Tennessee football, actually went to Texas A&M as a freshman.
That is interesting information. Had no idea. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know you're busy as always, and thank you very much for joining us on the virtual lunch. And hopefully we see you soon at some football games. If not, take care. And like I said, thank you very much.
Good deal. Dig 'em.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
See you.